Good afternoon, all the participants, and a very warm welcome to everybody today on this session, how to swap ingredients, the key ingredients that most of us use in our everyday cooking. So we all know that on an everyday basis, we find it a little hard to take all our traditional recipes and switch them up for, more healthier versions. So today we're going to understand what are those recipes and what are those ingredients that we can definitely that we're using on a daily basis, right? Today we're using ingredients like maida, or we're using refined flours, or we're using some kind of oils which are a part and parcel of our everyday cooking. And there are these key staples in our pantry as well, which we can swap for the healthier version, right? So many of us have a problem that when we come across traditional recipes, right? Suppose if you are eating a laddu, we don't want to alter the taste of it. We want the laddu to taste the same. We don't want the taste to get altered. We don't want the fact that, it should definitely not alter the texture, the way it feels. We just want it to become a healthier version, right? So how can we make those switch to healthier ingredients, right? To better ingredients, to more nutrient dense ingredients without having to change the texture altogether, or let's say change the sweetness, or for instance, the way it appeals to your palate, right? So we're going to start off first by talking about what are these key nutrients that formulate a ideal meal plate. We all know that in our everyday cooking, we find it a little hard to understand that how do we incorporate different nutrients, which are important, which are not important. Are carbohydrates good or bad? Should we let go of carbohydrates, right, altogether? So I'll be talking about firstly what an ideal meal plate looks like and what key nutrients are important. In each of the nutrients, we know carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, all three of them equally are going to contribute towards better health. But now we know in the carbohydrate group as well, right? There are certain carbohydrates that might not add value to our health. So what are these carbohydrates and what are their swaps? Even in the protein group, where now we are in a situation, or we are surrounded in the market as well with so many protein powders and so many protein options, right? So are we making the correct choice by switching to the so-called powders, or are we kind of not looking at our traditional recipes and looking at our traditional protein sources, right? Even in terms of fat, when most of us think that all the fats are bad and we should not eat fat because fat makes us fat, right? So that myth I'm going to bust today by giving you an insight into what are the healthy fats that we can use. How can simple recipes that involve butter, cheese, oil be replaced by the healthier versions? And I'm going to take towards the end 4 key recipes that many of us enjoy eating. And these 4 recipes, I know that, as a part of our Indian meal, are so popularly eaten, right? Even our children enjoy it, even elders enjoy it, right? So I'm going to take those 4 recipes and give them a little bit of a swap, give them a little bit of a makeover of sorts, all right? So towards the end, we're going to have a Q&A round. So try and save all your questions and queries for the end. Meanwhile, if you would like to contribute and take notes, or make a note of the recipes, please grab a notepad or a paper or a pen and just write it down. All right. So I always start my presentation by giving everybody an insight into what is a meal plate that looks like, which is idealistic, right? So many of us have this question that how should we incorporate the right nutrients in the right amount so that we are equipped to manage our health, so that we are equipped to prevent diseases, so that we don't have illnesses, chronic illnesses, so that we are, having better quality of life, better longevity, we fight the aging process and, slow the aging process down. And most importantly, we eat to fulfill ourselves, to, feel better about ourselves, to enjoy the experience as well, right? So how can one incorporate all these nutrients as a part of our everyday meals by including certain nutrients in the right proportion? So this is what an ideal meal plate looks like. Of course, this meal plate pattern and the percentages will differ based on what your goals are. So if you are, for instance, somebody who already has an illness like a diabetes or a hypertension, or you are coming from a place of some kind of illness for that matter, or you've had a hospitalization in the past, or you have a genetic makeup which does not, maybe, prone you, or which is not used to a certain kind of, dietary routine, then of course those changes can be made. But in a more generalistic fashion, this is what we should be including in our everyday meals. So let's try and break it down and understand. We're going to first discuss the grain group, right? The grain group is very, very common and very popular in our Indian meals, and we can't do away without our roti and rice. We all know that roti and rice is something that many of us use as a staple as well, right? And based on the region you are in, different crops are growing. So in the south, if you go, rice is the preferred choice of food, right? So there is your rice-based preparations, your idli, your dosas. And as you go north, the grain group becomes more popular, right? So we have, the millets, the grains, the rotis, the chapatis, the naans, and everything that are more popular. So based on the region as well, the crops that are present or prevalent will decide your eating habits. But we should understand that the grain group has gone through a big changeover and a big, big makeover over the years. All right. And what is this makeover? We need to understand. So the grain group occupies about 20% of your plate. And if it occupies 20% of your plate, that means that the grain group is important, right? Like many of us believe to lose weight, to maintain good health, we need to have very less rice or have no rice or have no roti, right? So that's a very reductionist kind of perspective, and we should not kind of conform to such myths, because we know that the grain group does offer some benefits as well. So I'll be taking each group now in particular, but the first group, right, is the grain group, and that occupies 20% of your plate. And your grain group includes your roti, your rice, your whole wheats, flours, your millets, your oats, your quinoa, your amaranth, all your vegetables also can provide carbohydrates, but they are a lower source of carbohydrate. So definitely the grain group is very, very popular. After that comes the protein group. We know the protein group is also essential for good hormonal health, for making antibodies in the body, and also for helping with our skin, hair health, our hormonal health. So apart from helping our bone and our muscle health, the protein group is very, very essential. And the protein group should occupy about 30% of your plate, because this is what gives us, it gives us a buffer in our blood glucose and kind of helps our blood glucose remain somewhat stable throughout the day. All right. Now, apart from this is the vegetable group, which is also equally important, which needs to occupy about 50% of your plate. And this is because the vegetable group is the group that is not given enough importance. And this is contributing to all the fiber in your meals. So all your fiber comes from vegetables and fruits, primarily from your whole grains also, but the most potent source is the vegetable group. And why is this important? Because the vegetable group, which provides us fiber, the fiber is going to be an anti-nutrient, which will not be used up in the body, but it will provide and be like a speed breaker. It will act like a speed breaker to your blood glucose. So for all of us who are eating foods, that are processed, that are refined, that are probably completely, processed from the food, by the food industries, we are not realizing that what is left in the bargain is just the refined version, which barely has any fiber. And anything without fiber, anything that does not have good amount of fiber in it, is bound to upset your blood glucose. All right. So we need to ensure we're getting good amount of fiber in our meals, so that we have good digestion, good immunity, because the fiber that's present in the vegetables is not only good for our smooth bowel movement, it is also important for maintaining your blood glucose. As I said, it's important for preventing cholesterol issues, and it is important, the fiber is very, very important, because it acts like a prebiotic in our gut. All right. So we need to understand that our gut also is made up of billions of bacteria, and we need to ensure these bacteria are fed with some fiber-rich foods. All right. So the fiber group is the vegetable and fruit group, which is not given enough importance, and it should occupy 50% of your plate. Now, the fat percentage is only 5% as indicated in the slide, but of course, this 5% will be, there will be a range between 5 to 10 based on your weight, your height, your parameters, your medical history. But this 5% has been set to this point because fat as an energy source or as a reserve of good nutrients is important, but it is going to be extremely dense, right? So if 1 gram of carbohydrates gives us 4 kcal of energy, 1 gram of fat will only give us 9 kcal of energy, which means double the amount that protein and carbohydrates give. So we need to essentially basically reduce the fat percentage in our meals. We need to have only a less of it for the same burst of energy. All right, because it's a very, very dense source. Now let's come to the different groups that I discussed earlier. So we're going to break down each of these groups and understand what are the healthier swaps. The grain group, as we all know, is definitely very important because, as I said earlier as well, it gives us good carbohydrates, gives us good energy. Today, to even lift a small bottle of water, I require quick, instant energy, which is given by the carbohydrate group, which is the grain group, right? Which is the primary source of fuel for our body. Apart from that, the grain group also gives us some magnesium, some B vitamins, right? And the outer layer of the grain, which is called the fibrous layer or the bran layer, is very, very crucial when we eat our meals. So as you can see in the slide, the grain group, right? You can see two kind of grains. You can see a whole grain and you can see a refined grain. The whole grain has the outer layer or the brown color bran retained, but the refined grain, most food companies will leach out or remove this outer layer, which is the bran layer, because it increases shelf life. It helps to make that product last longer on the shelves or the pantry. All right. So remember that your complex carbohydrates or your whole grains essentially are the grains with the fiber inside. The fiber is retained as it is truly or naturally present in its true state, right? So today when you go to a farm and you see all these cereals, you see all these crops of wheat, right? You'll see that if you pick the wheat from the farm, it has the whole grain retained, right? So this whole grain, which has the outer layer or the bran, is very, very essential in digestion, and it is essential to keep our blood glucose maintained. Why? Because fiber, the outer layer, which is the bran, is called the fiber layer, right? And this is what will be like a speed breaker to your blood glucose. So today when you eat the whole grain, suppose you eat whole wheat flour, right? What will happen? It will go in your body. The fiber will be like a speed breaker. So it will cause slow release of glucose from the wheat that you have eaten. All right, which means slow digestion, better blood glucose, more stable blood glucose, and you will be satiated and full for a longer period of time. All right. So all your whole millets, your whole wheat, your, your oats, your quinoa, all your whole grains for that matter will qualify in this category. Now, the category which we need to be a little careful of is the refined grain category, because this is the category where there is no outer layer or bran, which is the fiber retained. Now, if there is no fiber, what happens? There is no speed breaker to your blood glucose. So suppose you eat a maida-rich item. Let's say you take a bowl of noodles and that's only made from maida, right? And I only consume one big bowl of noodles. I will notice that I will quickly digest it because there is no speed breaker called fiber. That means my blood glucose will quickly rise and insulin hormone will come in to try and make the glucose be taken up by my cells, right? And after 2 hours, you'll notice your blood glucose has crashed because of the quick digestion, no speed breaker. After 2 hours, your blood glucose has crashed, and that crash in your energy, your blood glucose, will leave you vulnerable to more cravings and will trigger a vicious cycle. All right. So we need to understand that our blood sugar, managing our blood sugar is very, very important because that directly affects our hunger, our mood, our energy, everything. All right. So we want our blood sugar ideally to be like a smooth wave, right? We don't want it to quickly rise, quickly fall, go up like a roller coaster, right? If you want sustained blood glucose, you want a somewhat maintained blood glucose, you need to ensure to eat more of the whole grain variety, right? Because that will ensure sustained energy, stable mood and good controlled hunger as well. So remember, the left-hand side here, which is the refined section of the foods, will cause your blood glucose to constantly rise and fall. So as you can see in the slide, on the y-axis, we have blood glucose. On the x-axis, we have time. And what can you see? You can see the blood glucose is quickly going up and coming down, going up and coming down, right? So this is called a roller coaster in your blood glucose, which is basically those crashes in your blood glucose are going to be leaving you more vulnerable to cravings and hunger. So you'll constantly feel hungry, and that urge to constantly eat will be there because you are only consuming refined foods. So all your maida-rich items, your noodles, your fried items that are made from maida, your aerated colas that are made from refined sugar sweets, your high fructose corn syrup is what is used to make all your aerated drinks like your colas, Sprite, Pepsi, all your drinks, right, which are aerated. Even your sugar sweets, your bakery items, your cakes, your muffins, which are actually processed. They're made with mostly refined flour, refined maida, refined sugars, which are the bad carbohydrates, right? Now, these carbohydrates are definitely going to upset your blood glucose, but does that mean we let go of these kind of foods and we forget, that these foods ever existed and that we completely eat only soups and salads? No, right? The answer is no. We can definitely use our traditional recipes. And today the session is about that. We're going to be discussing how you can take a simple samosa recipe and turn it into a healthier samosa. All right. So we're going to understand that without letting go of what you enjoy eating, you can make healthier options and healthier decisions which are more informed. So on the right hand side, you can see the whole foods, right? The whole foods, which are all your vegetables, which have fiber, your whole grains like your jowar, bajra, which are not refined, which are whole in nature, your oats, your quinoa, your amaranth, your rajgira, your ragi, all these millets, right? And all your whole rice, your unpolished rice, all these versions of the whole grains, which are unrefined, are going to cause a smooth wave on your blood sugar chart, which means stable mood, reduced cravings, better energy levels, better focus, better memory. All right. So you want to focus on the foods that have fiber. You want to focus on the grain group. You need not let go of carbohydrates altogether. All you have to do is follow a simple rule that you need to swap your refined versions with the whole version. All right. So let's say you have a bowl of pasta and you're having that pasta which is completely refined, right? It's made from maida. Now I want to make a replacement of pasta, but I want to eat the pasta, right? So what do? As you can see in the slide, you can take the simple pasta and now you have in the market the availability of healthier versions too. So at home, what you could do is you could take a little bit of zucchini or you can take a little bit of carrot also and make spirals of it, right? And you can use that in place of pasta, in place of spaghetti, right? You can also take a little bit of whole grain pasta or you can take a little bit of chickpea pasta which is available, which is a much healthier and more protein rich version of the pasta, right? You can take, instead of having a burger bread or instead of having a refined white bread which is made from maida, you can take a version of the bread which is probably whole in nature. Slightly better version is having the 100% whole wheat variety, right? Which is not having any refined version of the maida in it. You can take, instead of having carbohydrate rich potatoes, you can replace them with a little bit of sweet potato, which is having more fiber than your regular potatoes. All right. Instead of having chips, or you can, your potato chips or any kind of chips for that matter, you can replace it with some makhana or even unsalted popcorn, or, the popcorn which is not having too much of butter and salt for that matter, right? Even a sugary cereal, most of our cereals that we get in the market, they use a technology to pop your cereal, and what you're essentially consuming, right? Most of your cereals in the market are processed. So what you have in your plate with milk does not have any fiber. It barely has fiber. And the nutrients have been removed. The nutrients have been leached, right? So when you pop a cereal, you're essentially removing the good nutrients. All right. And then these cereals are enriched with certain nutrients. So instead of going through the processed, lane and processed version and the processed, whole, down the lane of processed foods, how about replacing that with something more healthier? How about taking a whole grain like whole oats and making your own cereal at home, right? Throwing in some nuts, some seeds, maybe having it with a plant-based milk or even if milk suits you, you can have it with regular milk as well, right? You can take a simple ice cream and replace that with some yogurt and include some fruits in it, and maybe just put a little bit of honey or date paste on the top and have that as a simple, you know, dessert or a simple, like, you know, snack in between your meals as well, right? Instead of taking a wrap of whole or refined maida, right? You can make it a lettuce wrap for a more low carb version. You can use a whole grain variety instead of having the maida variety. So remember, there are simple versions which can be used. It's only about putting a little bit of thought and being a little creative. Now we have the availability and we have the access to so many healthier ingredients compared to, you know, a couple of years back. Now there is a surge in healthy foods, right? So we can definitely use that to the best of our advantage. Even when it comes to the sugar group, many of us will use white sugars to bake foods or to make our desserts. We use the brown sugar, which is also a refined sugar. We use, you know, in most biscuits or in most of the bakery items we get nowadays, they also use something called maltodextrin, right, which is the refined sugar, which is the processed sugar. Many of your aerated colas, as I said earlier as well, have something called high fructose corn syrup, which is again a refined sugar version. So all of these can be limited and can be restricted, and instead you can have the good sugars. Now, what are good sugars? Good sugars are nothing but sweeteners that can be used to sweeten your foods, but these are present as naturally having a sweet flavor. So today, for instance, let's say I take a little bit of plant-based stevia or something more simpler, which is called dates. Dates on its own, or khajur on its own, has a natural sweetness to it. It is sweet in nature, it has fiber, it has potassium, it has good iron content. So all this together, because it has a natural sweetness to it, I can use that in my preparations, in my desserts, in my other preparations as well, right? Why? Because it has a natural sweetness to it. It has not, the sweetness has not been added in a factory to it, right? There has not been any intervention or human intervention to make that processed version of the sugar, or to make it chemically, you know, to kind of go through a chemical process to make it that sweet or to lend that sweetness to it. So something which has a natural sweetness to it, like cinnamon, nutmeg, has a natural after sweet taste. Like the aftertaste is usually sweet. You can take a little bit of raisins as well, figs, apricots, fruits. As I said, even stevia, which is a plant-based sugar, can be used. Even a little bit of jaggery or a little bit of honey, which is a locally sourced honey, not your refined honey, because most of the honey also now is pasteurized honey available in the market. So try and go for a much more unpasteurized local honey version as opposed to the pasteurized version. Now, the problem with the bad sugars is that it's going to, of course, it's a bad sugar. Why? Because it causes a crash in your energy levels. Today, if you're having a sugar-rich item, let's say you're having 1 teaspoon of just plain white sugar, which is processed, you're bound to have an energy drop after a kick in your energy. So suddenly you will have a sugar rush and your body will suddenly get that kick, right? That dopamine rush because you've had sugar. It will quickly rise your blood glucose, and then after maybe, let's say, a couple of minutes, the sugar will fall drastically because there is no fiber present in it, right? So that crash in your sugar levels or your energy levels or your blood glucose levels will lead you to actually store that excess glucose as fat in your body, which will lead to accumulation of fat in your body, more inflammation, and risk of weight gain as well. All right. Some simple swaps that we can make on a daily basis is, instead of having the heavily addictive process, no nutrient rich, refined sugars, about replacing it with a little bit of natural sugars like coconut sugar maybe, or date paste. My favorite is date paste because it's packed with sugar. It's packed with a good natural sugar. It has potassium, iron, magnesium, fiber, everything packed in one, right? So it's a very dense source of having your, artificial sweet, again, chemically made, right? Now, these most artificial sweeteners, they are called artificial because of a reason, right? These artificial sweeteners, there have been various studies that have shown that they actually upset your gut health and they might weaken your gut lining and they cause hyperactivity in the brain. So it can really disrupt your microbiome, right? They can be toxic as well because too much of them can affect your brain activity, all right? So they're called neurotoxins or excitotoxins, which can really affect your brain activity. So instead of that, what you can do is you can use a stevia sugar, which is a plant-based version. It is naturally sweet. The plant of the stevia, which is, now very widely present, is going to have a natural sweetness to it, right? And it is low glycemic as well. By low glycemic, I mean that it does not cause a sugar spike in our body. All right. So these few swaps can be kept in mind, especially whilst cooking, making desserts, making mithais, whilst putting in your, tea, coffee as well. You can use a little bit of stevia instead. All right. Or even jaggery powder, which is the organic dark colored jaggery powder can be used. Now, the protein group, which is, widely, popularized by the media as being very important for muscle mass, for toning of the body, for good bone health and muscle health is important for sure. But we don't understand the protein powders available nowadays in the market might not be best for you, right? So even though the natural protein sources like the lentils, legumes, have your plant-based, soya bean, have your, let's say, your curd, your buttermilk, your lean meat, your eggs, your fish occasionally, right? All these lean cuts can be taken. You can have your sprouts as well because sprouts is great because it has more protein content compared to your regular lentils and legumes. So as you can see that the lentils and legumes, let's say you're taking a moong dal or a moong curry, that will only have 3 to 4 grams of protein because it is a thin preparation. The minute you sprout that, it increases the protein content by 30%. So if you have a moong sprout, it's a much more protein dense, a much more dense source of protein to consume. And for those who are vegan, vegetarian, I would say definitely stress on the sprouts and include that at least thrice or twice in a week. Now, these sprouts can be added to your sabzis. They can be used in a chaat. They can be powdered and put in your atas. You can also take some sattu flour, which is called roasted chickpea flour. And even that can be used in your cooking to make rotis, to make chilas, to use in smoothies as well. Even a little bit of tofu, paneer, all this can be eaten too because they are good protein sources. Now, of course, I have not mentioned the protein sources like cheese and, the feta, and even there are many other versions of cheese, the soft cheese, the hard cheese, because the cheese also has some amount of saturated fat in it, all right? Because it is a dairy source, an animal source, it has some amount of saturated fat. And even though a little bit of cheese can be given to young adults or children, for older adults, I would not recommend having this. Instead, you can use a better version like some grated tofu, some paneer. There are better versions of cheese which can be taken. And now, of course, there are some vegan cheeses also that are made from nuts like cashews and, even almonds for that matter. So you can consume those as well. All right. Now, protein supplements have become very, very popular. And these powders are coming from not just, your eggs, your milk, because we know that whey protein comes from milk, casein comes from milk, but also from some plant-based sources like your soya bean, your peas, your hemp seed. So all these are being powdered to make these protein supplements. And these protein supplements are packaged and they are bottled, right? The minute you're packaging that supplement, you have to add some, some shelf stable ingredients to it, right? So you have to add maybe a preservative. You have to add a additive. You have to add some artificial flavoring to enhance the taste, right? You have to add some caffeine, some thickeners, some added sugars probably. So these protein powders, even though they do, kind of address the problem of less protein in our vegetarian meals or in our everyday meals, the unfortunate side effect or the unfortunate downside is that they also have these artificial the artificial flavoring added to it. They have the additives, the preservatives, right? The chemicals added to it. So these, even though, they have a high level of protein, right? It has to be taken under supervision of a registered dietitian or somebody who is giving you proper guidance, like a doctor, or a professional who knows, right? Who has a good background, because if this protein supplement is taken without good workout, without good movement, or without a good exercise regime, the excess protein can be stored as fat, right? Too much of protein also can damage the kidneys and cause calcium loss and dehydration, right? And many of these supplements do also have caffeine, which again, in excess, the caffeine will be a stimulant and it will cause arrhythmia or increased heart rate. So remember that you need to be a little careful about these artificial supplements. What one can do is one can make a healthier swap to a natural protein supplement, and which, usually most people are now awaking to the idea, they're more open to the idea of making their own supplement at home. You can take some roasted chickpea flour or sattu. You can put a little bit of, almond flour or just roasted almonds powdered with a little bit of, walnuts, pistachios, any nuts that you enjoy eating can be powdered and mixed in the sattu flour. What I usually do is I like to add a little bit of cinnamon, nutmeg also for good flavor. And I store it in an airtight container to be used in smoothies whenever I want to consume a protein smoothie. But you can also mix it with some fennel powder or with some dry ginger powder, which is called salt. And you can also take a little bit of, turmeric and cardamom and mix that in the powder and keep it. And whenever you want to have this, you can make a chila out of it. You can make a simple roti out of it. You can put it in your smoothie also. You can have it with milk before your workout or after your workout. So it can be a really good, natural protein supplement, which can be stored in an airtight container. And I would say you can even refrigerate it for a better shelf life. All right. So now we have discussed the protein and the grain group. Now let's come to the vegetable group. This group, of course, as said earlier, is the most potent source of fiber, and fiber is very, very important to help keep our body fuller, for delayed gastric emptying, for preventing constipation, and to get that extra antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals. All right. So you want to ensure you're getting all these different antioxidants from different colored vegetables and fruits. So the more colored variety you consume, the rainbow colored variety you consume, the better different various nutrients you're adding to your diet. So let's say tomatoes has lycopene, which is great for anti-aging. Let's say you're consuming carrots, which has beta carotene for eye health, right? You're consuming, let's say, onion, which has something called quercetin, right, which prevents cancer. It's very important that we understand the benefits of different colors and what they offer, or what antioxidants or what general properties they have, and how can they offer better health and better value. So, as I said, the different colors should be incorporated, different leafy greens should be incorporated, and go for the more local seasonal variety as opposed to the packaged and exported ones, which again are going to have some amount of processing to preserve it for a long of time, to travel long distances. Now, apart from that, in the vegetable and fruit group, many of us like to juice our fruits, and juicing the fruit in particular will leave it without any fiber, because you're essentially removing all the pulp, right? And if there is no fiber, no pulp, the fruit juice is essentially only sugar. And only sugar means what? It's absorbed very quickly in your body, and the excess glucose, if it's absorbed very quickly, it causes a spike and a fall in your blood glucose, making you search for more energy, vulnerable to more cravings, and that excess glucose spike will cause the excess glucose in your body to be stored as fat. All right. So you want to consume the whole fruit with the fiber as much as possible, unless, of course, you're on a liquid diet, or you're going through some illness or hospitalization, or you are a senior citizen who can't bite their fruit. I would say that please have your whole fruits as much as possible, right? Because the whole fruit has the fiber, and the sugar from the fruit will be released slowly and absorbed in a slow fashion, because the fiber is a speed breaker to your blood glucose. And obviously something else also that we don't understand is that if you're having a whole glass of fruit juice, it's not going to come from one whole fruit. you will take about 3 to 4 oranges to make 1 glass of also fruit juice. You're having more, you're increasing your calorific intake as well. Now, apart from that, the fat group, which is only 5 to 10% of your plate, as I said earlier, it's very, very dense in energy. And this fat group, right, many of us avoid altogether because we feel that we should not be eating fats. We should not be using oils. We should not be using, any kind of oils or fat in our foods, right? So that's a myth that we would like to understand and break today, right? Because the fact that oils are present, they are naturally present in the environment also means that our body can utilize it. And what are the benefits of fats? Your healthy oils, if had in the cold pressed unrefined version, can give you good benefits as well. The healthy oils will help you absorb vitamins like vitamin A, D, and E. Vitamin A, D, E are fat soluble. They require a fat medium to be absorbed. Fat is important, the healthier fat, for good muscle movement, for blood clotting, to reduce inflammation in the body. All right. And healthy fats like your nuts, your seeds, like your nut butters, your cold press oils, your unrefined oils are going to be a good variety. Your avocados, your olive oil, your olives also in general, all these qualify as being healthy fats which will contribute to your health, the omega-3, the omega-6. And we all know that our brain also is made up of 60% of fat. So for good brain health, to boost brain power, we need to consume the healthy fats. The unhealthy fats are the fats that are extremely processed and refined by food factories. Now, in food factories, what they do is they want to, again, increase shelf life, preserve the food item. So they will take your cheap version of hydrogenated oil. They'll take a vegetable oil for that matter and hydrogenate it at a very, very high heating point, which will actually form and it will solidify and produce trans fat when eaten in the body. So when you eat this high temperature, shortened hydrogenated vegetable oil, which is solidified, and this is present mostly in your packaged foods, you see the packet next time you consume. See the backside of the label. The chips you consume, the biscuits you consume, any kind of crackers you consume or cookies you consume or any bakery items you consume, the backside of the label will have something called vegetable oil. And if it is hydrogenated, it means that it has been shortened, it has been solidified at a very high heating point. And if it has been dealt with at a very high heating point, it means that the high heating has converted your good oil properties into unhealthy fats called trans fat. And that trans fat will be again forming plaques in your arteries and causing cholesterol issues and other problems like which are heart related. So remember, you want to focus on the healthy fats, and the unhealthy fats usually present as trans fat in most of your packaged foods. They should have 0% trans fat, and the saturated fat percentage which comes from your dairy, your meat, should be less than 5% on most packaged products. All right. So a simple swap that we can make out here is, instead of having your heavy creams that are rich in saturated fat, replace it with a healthy yogurt, right? Today we know that even yogurt, which is normal yogurt or even some low-fat Greek yogurt, if you nicely just, whip it up, or if you just strain the water out of it and, have it as hung yogurt, you can use it in dips. You can use it in simple preparations, right? To even thicken your gravies as well. You can use this instead of cream and sour cream. Instead of mayonnaise, which is again a refined fat version, I would suggest to stick to a much more better version like a hummus or some better dip. Instead of having butter in your preparations, I would say switch to a nut butter, or switch to avocado, or switch to olive oil, or switch to any cold pressed oil which can be used, which is unrefined. Let's say I'm consuming a little bit of olive oil in my salads and pastas, right, instead of butter. It's a much better version because I'm reducing the saturated fat from the butter and I'm replacing it with olive oil, which is cold pressed and unrefined, and olive oil is rich in omega-3, which boosts my brain power. All right. So making these small switch or making these small swaps, right, can really, really come in very handy. The next time you use butter on your toast, right? Take 100% whole wheat bread, and instead of putting butter on it, take a little bit of homemade almond butter or peanut butter, which is unsweetened, right? That has the healthy omega-3, omega-6 fats in it, which are going to add to your health. Vitamin E is packed in the peanuts. The almonds are rich sources of magnesium and so many other minerals as well, right? So you're at least adding some nutrient dense items to your meals, which are going to add value to your health, right? So remember to make these simple changes when it comes to your fat count. Even to reduce the oil that is used in your cooking, you can swap for different cooking methods. Many of us go for deep frying, or we even go for, pan frying for that matter, right? Instead, you can use a little bit of stir fry. You just throw in a little bit of oil and just stir fry your nutrients or your food, right? You can take a little bit of, you can use boiling methods instead, right? It requires no oil absolutely. Grilling also will reduce the oil that is used. Even steaming it, not all items can be steamed, but some foods that can, be used while steaming and requires no oil again will again help you and add better value to your health. Even baking is another very, very good way, which is, baking in the oven for that matter, or even baking otherwise can make your food more crispier, more fragrant, and even you will not need to use as much oil, which is used in deep frying or pan frying, right? Even using simple methods like stewing or braising or poaching can also be very, very good. So try and use these simple methods of cooking instead of following the more, difficult versions, or which might be easier, right? But they are definitely taking up more fat. They are causing, taking up more oil in your foods. And because more oil is absorbed, it's going to increase the fat load in your body. And again, that excess fat in your body is going to cause accumulation, and it will lead to more problems in the future. All right. So let's say, for instance, you're having egg, right? Many of us in the morning, we eat eggs. So instead of frying your egg or having a full fry or omelet, right? How about boiling your egg, right? How about having, a omelet as well, but by using no oil, right? That's possible, right? You can try and do these simple things to switch or to reduce the fat or to reduce the oil or reduce the fat content of your meals, right? Even taking potato, and instead of frying your potato, or instead of, making potato chips out of it, you can just mash that potato or, bake that potato. It will decrease the fat in that particular item by a great extent, right? So these methods like boiling, steaming, roasting are far better. Even your gut health is equally important. So remember, a bonus tip to add here is don't forget your yogurt, buttermilk, your idli, dosa, dhokla, your rice kanji, your pickle, your homemade pickle. Don't forget your simple probiotic rich foods to add to your meals for improving your gut health, right? Because excess sugars, excess refined foods, they will leach your gut health and they will actually upset your gut lining. All right. So remember, you want to include the more probiotic rich foods to enhance the population of the good bacteria in your gut and to maintain gut biosis. And as I said earlier as well, the prebiotic rich, fiber rich foods like your vegetables, your fruits, your wheat bran can be had also in addition to the probiotics for maintaining good gut biosis. Now, for snacking also, many of us go wrong because when we are, very, very hungry, we want to munch on whatever comes our way. We eat between 4 and 6 p.m. That is all the unhealthy habits and all the junk that we consume, right? So instead, you can switch to a better snacking technique, and a simple swap you can do here is swap your maida-rich items with something which is whole in nature. All right. So instead of having biscuits which are made from refined or maida, you can take a whole grain cracker, right? You can take some fiber-rich vegetables like cut, celery, cut sticks of cucumber and carrot, and have it with some protein-rich nut butter or protein-rich hummus or protein-rich any kind of lentil dip or legume dip, right? or chickpea dip for that matter. So it's all about putting a little bit of thought to it. Take a fiber-rich food and combine that with a protein-rich food. Your fiber plus protein is a great way to combine and make a snack, because that will buffer your blood glucose and delay the emptying of the food from your stomach, and cause better management of blood glucose, and it will prevent the spike in your blood glucose. So what does that mean? Today, if I'm eating a fiber-rich food with a protein-rich food as a snack, it means that it will cause slow release of glucose from my food eaten, which means slow absorption, which means I will feel not hungry for the next 2 to 3 hours at least, because my blood glucose is maintained, because my blood glucose is stable, because my blood glucose is more or less in control. It's not like a roller coaster. So remember, for longer satiety, more fullness, for better energy levels, you want to take your fiber-rich foods and combine that with your protein-rich foods. All right. Now, what are some healthy ingredients that I can use for simple recipes? I said earlier, as promised earlier too, we have our simple laddu here. And this laddu is eaten mostly by everyone, either in Diwali time or celebration time. It's eaten also during, festivals. Now we have Holi coming up, so people are having a lot of laddus and gujiyas and many other kind of items, right? So what do you see is wrong out here? I have given the recipe of the laddu out here, and the recipe of the motichur laddu includes besan, rava, maida. It includes a lot of oil for frying as well, right? And of course, if you're including some nuts and seeds, those are all going to be healthy. So what do you see out here is going to be problematic? And you can type in the chat box as well. Can anyone tell me that what are the problematic ingredients here? And you can type your answers in the chat box. Maida, sugar, oil, right? So I have highlighted these foods. Now the rava, the suji is also refined. Okay, that fine semolina. It's not the thick semolina. It's not the coarse one. It's the refined one. Okay, and if you're going to use the refined maida or the refined suji or the oil for frying and the sugar as well, right? It's going to bound to cause a problem, weight gain, of course, and more prone to diseases in the future if you continue eating these kind of foods, right? So all I'm saying is that a healthier version is available. That same laddu, you can convert it into a date laddu or a oat laddu. All right. How about instead of having suji and maida, I replace it with a little bit of sattu and besan. All right. And if I'm taking sattu and besan, some of us don't like the taste of it. You can take oats as well, right? So oats, whole oats, not the refined version. The whole oats can be taken with a little bit of besan flour, which is protein rich. It comes from chickpeas. You can take a little bit of peanut butter instead of oil, right? So here I have replaced the simple ingredients from the previous recipe with the healthier version. All right. So what I have done, I've taken the peanut butter instead of oil. I've taken dates instead of sugar, which is a natural, sugar version. It's a much more healthier version. And I've replaced the refined flour with oats and besan. All right. So all I have to do is just soak the dates in a little bit of water, remove the seed of it, right? Remove the dates seed, and then put it in a food processor with the oats, with the cocoa powder, with any nuts that you would enjoy eating, a little bit of peanut butter, and the oats and the sattu flour has to be mixed as well. And then when it forms a dough-like consistency, when it makes a smooth dough out of it, I'll just take it in my hand, make small round balls, and store in the refrigerator to be eaten whenever I want, right? So a simple date energy recipe, this laddu or this energy ball will come in very handy even for those who want to have a snack in between their meals. When you're hungry between lunch and dinner, these two laddus can be eaten. They are quick energy because they have dates in it, they have oats in it, and both dates and oats have fiber in them, which will keep your energy level sustained for a longer period of time. All right. It has protein coming from besan or sattu as well, and healthy fats because peanut butter has omega-6 in it. All right. So the second recipe I have taken here is samosa. And many of us really enjoy our fried snacks, our kachoris, the samosas, and we don't want to let go of all our our unhealthy recipes, right? We have our traditional recipes that we have learned over the years, and why should we replace that, right? Because the texture will change, the samosa will taste different, right? So how about I ask you that I will not replace all the unhealthy items altogether, but I'll just take them in a smaller portion, okay? So here we have the problematic ingredients like maida or refined flour. We have the oil, of course, right? And we have the potato, right? Now, too much potato also, we all know, is starch, and too much starch is not good because it will again contribute towards the fat reserves. So how can I make this deep fried version into a healthier version? So what I have done is I have taken the potato and replace it with some soya bean. Now, soya bean granules, right, are going to be protein rich. If you do not enjoy the, soya bean in your samosa, you can also replace it with some chana dal, right? People also like to eat chana dal. They also like to take half and half. So taking sweet potato and soya bean, or taking chana dal and sweet potato. So based on your liking, you can replace it. But instead of having only potato as a stuffing here, I have taken soya bean. Soya bean is protein rich. Again, if it is protein rich, it will buffer my blood glucose. Again, protein is great for my hair health, my skin health, my my immunity, my antibodies. It's great for hormonal health as well. And soya bean in particular is absolutely great. It has the good amino acids. All right. So I will take the potato, replace it with soya bean. And also, instead of having only maida, right? Now people, they need a little bit of glutinous maida because it will not stretch and you will not be able to be form the simple round patties of the samosa, right? The simple flaps will not be formed. So what you can do is take whole wheat instead of refined wheat. Take 1 cup of whole wheat and half a cup of moong dal flour, which is protein rich, and only half cup of maida. So from 2 cups of maida, I've reduced the load to only half a cup, right? So I'm definitely offering a much more healthier version. And this is absolutely easy to make as well. All you have to do is take your little bit of oil in the pan, just maybe half a teaspoon or 1 teaspoon. Throw in some onion, throw in some ginger, garlic, and just saute it until it's translucent. Then you can add your soya bean granules. You can put in some coriander, make the stuffing, add all your spices of your choice, right? And keep that mixture separately away from the gas. All right, after it has mixed properly, you can keep it away. Now you take all your flours. You take your whole wheat, you take your moong dal flour and a little bit of maida and little salt, little oil, add to it, make it into a atta. How you knead your dough. Then you try and rest it for a good 15 minutes, and all you have to do is roll it out into thin sheets. Now once these thin sheets are rolled out, you can either warm them on the tawa, right? Or you can even just start taking small sheets and cutting them into triangles or into long strips and wrapping the masala that was made of the soybean granules in this, and like a flap, you cover it, make a samosa like a golden triangle and bake it in the oven or even air fry it, right? Even air frying is a good method. It reduces the oil load. And some people like to do they like to, have their products air fried or their food air fried, or for that matter, if you're okay with baking your, samosa, go ahead and bake it because that uses very or little or no oil. All right. So again, I have given you a simple version of samosa. Even pizzas are something which many of our children enjoy. We feel that the pizza is something which is like is a favorite amongst most people. So again, pizza comes from maida. It's made from refined flour. That's how it is rolled out because that glutinous structure is there, which is very, very sticky and very, very rubbery. And that's what gives that kind of texture to the pizza, right? So how can we make this pizza into a healthier version? All right. So first, let's identify the ingredients which are problematic. We can see here the maida is definitely problematic. The cheese, which is again processed, which probably has some protein, but it also has a lot of saturated fat in it, which is not great for our health, right? So how can we replace this and make it into a healthier version? So in the dough, there is some maida used here for traditional pizzas. there's a little bit of salt and a little bit of either baking soda or baking powder, right? For the pizza sauce, there's some tomatoes, there's onion, there's all your spices, whichever you enjoy eating, and a little bit of olive oil and salt and cheese, right? So how do we replace this pizza recipe and make it into a healthier version? What we can do is replace the maida with some jowar. Now, jowar flour or whole jowar has a lot of fiber packed in it. So you're again replacing a refined grain with a whole grain, right? I'm taking the simple cheese, which was, which is widely popular, and replacing that with some grated paneer or tofu. Now again, tofu will be a much better option. You can also take a little bit of feta cheese for those who don't want to let go of their cheese, right? Feta cheese, the most softer version, is less processed. So again, that can be, coming in handy for those who don't want to let go of their cheese altogether. But I would definitely say those who are watching their weight, who are watching their abdominal fat, who want to stay clear of cholesterol. So definitely I would say the tofu grated or a little bit of paneer grated in place of cheese can be used for your pizza. So you need to knead the dough, the way you make the dough for your pizza also, instead of taking maida, you take jowar and a little bit of salt and a little bit of water and make it into a simple dough and roll it out like a chapati or a big roti. Instead of a normal roti, you make a bigger roti. All right. And all you have to do is make the paste, the pizza base, the sauce of the pizza, and that sauce of the pizza will have some blanched tomatoes. You can throw in some spices of your choice, make it like a smooth paste, all right, and nicely place all the vegetables, any grated, vegetables that you enjoy eating. It could be onion, tomatoes, it could be peppers, it could be jalapenos, whatever you enjoy eating can be placed on the top, right? And this can be baked with a little bit of grated tofu or grated paneer and baked in the oven for a couple of minutes. And again, you have your healthier version of the pizza as opposed to the cheesy maida pizza. All right. Now, apart from that, we know the chaat also, right? Many of us love eating our chaats, love eating our snacks. So most of the chaats have a lot of save in it, right? The fried save, the potato, they have maybe some sweet, chutney added to it, which might be made from sugar or refined sugar. So the same chaat can be made into a much more protein-rich item. All right. Now this chaat can be converted into a more protein-dense recipe. Can anyone tell me how can that happen? Let's see now how y'all can, help make better changes. The next time you all enter the kitchen, you all should know that what are the healthier alternatives to be used and what swaps can be made quickly and without much effort. Someone said soya bean. Okay, that can be tried. That's a good option. You can add chana, very nice. So lentil, any boiled legumes, boiled lentil, boiled, let's say you can take a little bit of boiled, black chana or a little bit of mung boiled as well can be added, right? So both can be used. Great options, right? And in place of save, what can we do? I want to avoid the save. So how do I add that crunch and, prevent that save in my meals? So date chutney is a great option. In place of sweet chutney, you can definitely have the date chutney and the coriander chutney. Works perfectly fine. So what I have done is I have taken these three main ingredients, which is potato, save, and the sweet syrup, and replaced that with sprouted moong. All right. For crunch, I have added a little bit of grated carrot in place of save. And instead of potato, I have used sweet potato, which is much more fiberful. All right. And as someone mentioned as well, you can add a little bit of date chutney, which is giving that sweetness to it, the date paste or date chutney. All right. So again, these all options, they are extremely easy. They're available. They need not, they aren't even expensive for that matter. Many of us feel that being healthy is, being difficult on the pocket, right? So all these simple ingredients, these simple swaps can be made. And I want to see now that how all of y'all can, utilize these recipes. And even for that matter, go home or, if you are at home as well, please utilize these ingredients. Go to your fridge next time, open your pantry, see what are the healthier options, the swaps you can make. right? This simple sprout chart is going to be a very great recipe. It has protein, it has fiber. Protein is present in sprouts, fibers, all the vegetables you're going to add to the chutney or the chart to it. And this can all be combined, right? You can throw in some kurmura or puffed, puffed rice as well. And you can throw in some lemon juice, chutney, roasted nuts or peanuts to make it more crunchier. All right. So these are very simple recipes. You need not, even spend more than 15 or 20 minutes on it. They're very, very easy to make and they're very simple to try out. All right. And they all use your kitchen staples. All right. So now I'll open the forum for questions for Q&A. So let's see what questions and queries we have. All right.